Business page.
The troubled Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority is getting an outside helping hand, if you will, all in an effort to transform the operation into an organization that serves the needs of consumers and also replaces and repairs the deteriorating infrastructure that carries our water. Mayor Bill Peduto appointed the Blue Ribbon Panel to turn those proposed changes into reality. And joining us on the Sunday Business page are two members of that panel. One is Michelle Naccarati-Chapkis. She is serving as the Executive Director of Women for a Healthy Environment. She's on the panel, as is Alex Thompson. He's an attorney and president of the law firm Houston Harbaugh. Mr. Thompson also is the former chair of the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority. I'd like to welcome you both to the studios of KDK, and thanks for being here on the Sunday Business page.
Thank you for having us.
Michelle, we'll get started with you first of all, because the most recent news story that came out happened earlier this week. People saying in the area south and west of the Mon that there were issues with back service that was not, people were not paying. Some people had been a year plus, and now there were shut-off notices. And then there was a moratorium. Where does that stand right now as far as getting a resolution for those people that they can maintain service and at the same time pay the bills that they owe?
So PWSA had certainly been corresponding with these individuals for quite a long time now, in some instances well over a year. And so they have had recent communication with them, encouraging them to contact PWSA to work out a payment plan, to have some type of resolution moving forward, because certainly PWSA wants to avoid any terminations.
Right. Alex, I know that is the real question right now is, yes, you have to pay for that service, but you also have to maintain it. Billing has been an issue for a lot of people, and I'm sure on the panel you are well aware of that. Is that the issue that you hear more often than not, or water quality? What's the biggest thing that you're faced with?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is in the past 6 months, PWSA has significantly improved its operations. And one of the things the panel focused on, the Blue Ribbon panel, is how do we sustain that improvement and how do we accelerate that improvement? Right. So I think there are lots of challenges that PWSA faces, from billing, from the lead service lines, to the deteriorating infrastructure. But the goal of the Blue Ribbon panel was really to take a look at what structure we can recommend that will continue the quality improvements that have taken place and then accelerate those.
Is it an oversimplification to simply say there hasn't been enough done in the last 20 years to maintain, to keep up, and as a result, this is aging, this is falling apart, now we've got to put all this money? Is that an oversimplification?
I don't think it's an oversimplification, but I think the problem is a little more complex than that. Okay. It's not only a lack of investment in the physical infrastructure of PWSA, it's also a problem with governance. And that governance wasn't at the level that was needed to sort of, one, make those investments, and two, to sort of plan for the future.
Michelle, who should govern the PWSA? In the panel's estimation, have you gotten to that point in terms of talking about those sorts of things?
We have. Through a significant amount of time and investment, the panel has really done its homework and reached out to all of those that really could provide us some insight to the process. And we have determined that the best route to take is to improve that governance change by putting together a board of nominators. And then the board of nominators would appoint a board of directors. And it removes all of the political influence that currently the structure the authority had in place for decades now. So this would be a truly independent body that would be functioning in the best interest of the authority, with all of the skilled and qualified individuals who would ask the important questions of, what do we need to really effectively run a water authority?
How had board members been appointed? How were they on there before?
It was a political process appointed by the mayor. Okay,
so it came from the mayor's office at that point. Alex, when we start thinking about public perception, and for a lot of people, perception is reality. They look at it and you hear the stories about lead in the service lines. You know that the water supply lines in some places are lead lines. Is that the biggest issue, or is the issue production of clean water that goes through whatever kind of line? That it has to start at the plant first, and then we'll deal with what's hauling it, if you will.
I think that there are multiple parts to that issue, but from our perspective, the key starts with good governance. And what is good governance? Good governance is people that get that position as a board of directors based on what they know and their experience, not based on a position or who they know. Right now on the board of directors, 3 city employees are by position on the board: the city finance director, the city treasurer, and 1 member of city council. And so making sure that those people that are on the board don't have divided loyalties, that we can find the highest quality people and then give them the independence to be able to effectively run PWSA, we think that that's the crucial recommendation that came out of the Blue Ribbon panel.
And Michelle, this is impossible within about 45 seconds left. How do you pay for it all? I mean, because that really is at the core of the entire issue is who pays for it? How do you pay for it?
So it certainly gets to a long-term vision and strategy. We have some short-term solutions, but we know that PWSA has a capital improvement project list that really speaks to that, and they're planning for the future, which is encouraging. So collectively, I think that there's an opportunity to move forward. But this really gets to the primary focus of our PWSA Blue Ribbon panel, that public health and safety is at the foremost of all of our decision making, and making this water affordable to the residents of the city. And
So
that's,
if you can accomplish those things, the panel feels that it's done its job.
Indeed.
All right. Well, I know that there's a big deadline coming up in March, and we wish you the best of luck as you get to that point. Thank you very much for being here, Michelle.
Thank you.
Alex, it's good to see you.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
your time on the Sunday Business Page. Still to come this morning, we're going to talk about new rides. The Pittsburgh International Auto Show is in town. Stay with us. We'll tell you about that.